Welcome to Wellness Radio with Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher as your host. Her show discusses topics of health, wellness, and spirituality, and is about discovering your place in this great universe, from your cells to the cosmos. Along with her guest, in casual conversation, she strives to ask the difficult questions that may be holding you back from a vibrant life, and shares new ideas that may inspire you to make a change in your life that you only can see in your dreams. And now, here is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Wellness Radio. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher, and it's a pleasure to have you with us here this evening. Tonight, we are going to go on an adventure again into our minds, into our thoughts, our realities, the illusion of life, the illusion of the world. What is this all about? We have a great summer read, 2023 today. We're going to be talking about, the book is called Age of Resolve, the EV Chronicles. Let me tell you, this book is absolutely awesome, and you're saying, ooh, is this parallel to life today? Is this perhaps maybe something from the past? Is this a been there, done that kind of thing for humanity, society, the world in which we are in? Perhaps maybe we're saying, where are we going? What is humanness all about? Are we becoming avatars? Are we becoming limitless people? Perhaps maybe we're saying, oh no, we need to conform, constrain, be within this paradigm. You know, there's so many people in the spiritual path these days, and they're saying, can't wait until we get to the next dimension. And I said, you know, the next dimension is not everybody in white cloaks wearing Birkenstocks. It's not how it works. There are many people, many good things going on in the world. People have different aspects of their mind and their thoughts. How do you keep them in control, in line, in compliance? Maybe the next dimension is white robes and Birkenstocks. What do you think? What we're talking about is, what is humanity? The illusion? Where are we going? Where have we been? A fantastic summer read. My guest today is Ilene Grydsuk. Her book is Age of Resolve, the EV Chronicles, and she'll be sharing with us a little glimpse, so to speak, into the story. And we'll say, ooh, that sounds interesting. I can assure you, from the first page, you will say, what's next? Oh, my goodness. And you really cannot put this book down. Ilene, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you with us here today.
And thank you, Dr. Jeanette, for welcoming me to your show.
So glad to have you to talk about your book for our summer read list, and because people are saying, I'm just so tired of all of these books pushing stuff down me, telling me how I want to think, but even those old romances, they don't even hold up anymore, don't you think?
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah. What I really loved about your book is it took us on an adventure into those, what I call deep, dark thoughts many people have been having over the past several years. And we won't talk about it or give it a label, but kind of society has almost been through the dumpster, kind of, don't you think, in the past several years?
Well, that's what propelled me to write this book, just having some really deep critical thought about all of this turmoil in society today, and how we just can't seem to come together as a global community. It's constant conflict. It's constant strife. Is this really where we're going? I can't figure it out. So I just wanted to put my thoughts on paper and say, maybe there's another way to do this.
What I loved about the book is people will say, but is this a novel? Is this something that's just an illusion? And I will say, what I've really found reading your book, Age of Resolve, is that many glimpses in the book, there's historical, there's past lives, there's past societies, there's perhaps future societies that we've already lived through, we just don't even realize it. Don't you think that the book is about glimpsing of possibilities versus saying this is the way it must be?
Absolutely. That's exactly what the purpose of the book is just to give people opportunity to think critically for themselves and to reflect on the possibility of a different path moving forward. Do we necessarily have to continue moving in the direction we're moving in as a global society? I personally am not a real fan of where we're headed, and so I thought maybe if we could just provide a possibility, an alternate reality that people could go, geez, maybe there is a better way. Maybe there is another path forward for us.
You know, I think our minds really have been so construed. You know, I'm almost 70. Our minds have been construed by the internet. Sorry, you know, you could take it. There's the good, the bad, and the ugly there. But I can definitely remember I had a guest a little while back, and we were talking about when we grew up. And, you know, if your bicycle chain broke, it was called, well, I don't know how to fix it. There's not a, quote, book in the library, how to fix your bike that I bought today, because there would be old books in the library, you know. So it was almost you had to go out and figure it out for yourself. And then if you became older and you got good at it, fix 100 bike chains, you could write your own book about it. Yet on the internet, everything is so fast, so quick. Your mind, you see it, you read it, you learn it, you do it, it's done. 10, 15 minutes. Do you think perhaps the evolution of people has just been on such an exponential wave, we might be losing track of it?
No, absolutely. I think that absolutely the digital revolution and the birth of social media has profoundly changed how we interact with each other, with our environment, within our communities, even within our own families. It has fundamentally shifted how we live. Like it's so infiltrated our lives. I want to fix this bike chain. All I do is pull up YouTube how to fix. You know, it's everything is instant. Everything is there. What really concerns me with this whole birth of multimedia is how everybody takes everything at face value. My own children included. Well, TikTok says, so it must be. And YouTube says, so it must be. And they don't think for themselves anymore. They don't reflect. They don't challenge themselves. They take everything at face value now because it's all out there. And it's so instant. It's so easy. Well, why do I have to think? It's all done for me. Even with schools. It's the same thing in the schools. The kids just, well, if they have a math problem, they just go on the internet and they YouTube it and it's solved for them. You know, there's no more thinking.
Or how about the idea of autocorrect? You know, they don't spell anymore, you know. Or
emojis, right?
I know. I mean, like, I live in the city of New Orleans, and the education system this year just took a real major dump. They said there's 70,000 less people in this one parish, which is, I guess you would attribute to a county. And there's 70,000 people less because of all the hurricanes and people moving away and everything. And so now we're going to close some of the schools. And you have a choice. You can do online. Do you know that over 50% of the people chose to do online? And I'm going, those kids, they're not, you don't learn how to write anymore. Nobody knows script. And how are they going to even know the difference between the word herd is H-E-R-D or H-E-A-R-D? You know what I mean? It's sort of like, what are we raising?
But I also think in the book, not to pick on, but point out some of the institutional problems that we have, because I think a lot of our public institutions are sponsoring these shifts. You know, they're not considering the future impacts. It's just, this is the easy way. This is the way we're going to do it now. We're going to change this curriculum. We're going to remove phonics from the curriculum. We're going to remove cursive from the curriculum. We're going to, you know, we're going to shift. What I learned in elementary school is certainly not what my children learned, and that's only one generation, and is shifted even more. And so what are the long-term impacts of all of these institutional shifts in how we are raising our children? This is, in the book I say, you know, no more chaos
right.
for the future of our children. There's a reason I say that, because I think we are creating chaos. The kids are confused. They don't, and they don't, we really have to stop and think about the impact on future generations of all of these institutional shifts that we're making right now. I think it's critical. We got to stop and think about it.
But you know what also, too, Eileen, I think that you come to the point where you talk about in your book about chaos, and I think about that, and is it chaos because we have too many generations at play and interacting within the same interface, or can the chaos be reduced by getting rid of some of the elderlies, bringing up the young ones just as we speak, keeping them in alignment and limiting their access? That is really important, because if you look at it, the past several years, who was affected the most? The elderly. You know?
Mm-hmm.
Who is affected right now with the high prices, not being able to afford food or gas or homes or living or whatever? The elderly. Because, you know, you look at it, are we in a time, the year 2023, where we are starting to let some of these generations dissipate, go away, and reducing their impact in society, and still controlling what's coming out for the future? Do you think?
Isn't that a sad testament to where we're headed, though?
Really,
if that is in fact what is going on, and I don't disagree with you. I think the elderly people. I have elderly parents. They're just being left by the wayside to fend for themselves.
Yes.
And if they're not, my parents, digital media, they're left out in the cold. They don't understand the way the world has shifted. They don't want to. They like things the way they are. And so there's a huge disconnect now. So if you don't get on board, then you get left out in the cold. Yeah. Who's responsible? These elderly people, this generation, they're what built our countries.
Mm-hmm.
That's why we are where we are. How dare we? You see how I honor elderly people in the book. If you've read the book, I think that we've forgotten that we have gotten where we are on the backs of these hardworking people, and now, you know, everything's shifted. So thanks for your support, and you guys, we're going to put you in this box over here because you're not on board with where we're going with this digital revolution. And so now we're gonna bring up these kids the way we feel that society is going. And who says it's right and wrong? I think it's wrong, but that's just my opinion. Yeah. The whole purpose of the book is to get people to think critically for themselves. You know, I've always said this. Maybe you don't agree with me. Maybe I've been asked, is it a dystopian novel or is it a utopian novel? I think that depends on who you're asking.
That's right. Yeah.
It depends on who the audience is.
Yeah.
So, you know, there's just so much going on in the world today that we really have to put the brakes on and think about what our next, what are we raising as a next generation? I think it's just, in my opinion, more chaos.
You know, you did share in the back of the book, you say, you know, the elders are saying, they need to ask us about our wisdom. They need to ask us about how it went, how it didn't go, and how it might go. You know, and I think sometimes people will cast that out and say that's old knowledge, that's old tools that no longer exist. I mean, we look at it at drugs, you know. As the elderly, we are given certain drugs that we know, but now there's these newfound DNA, RNA, telomeres, this, that, the other. We need to be on the impact side. How are we going to affect the biome? How are we going to change your body? How are we going to affect your neurons and put them in line? You know, this whole idea of balance, you know, kind of freaks me out, you know. I always say the yin and the yang sign is not gray for a reason, you know. They're supposed to be flow within the system. They're supposed to be good, bad, dangerous people. They're supposed to be really, you know, people who are going to be the saviors, others who are going to have conflict. But your book really takes us along that adventure. What are we going to do with those good and bad people? Are we going to push them into the middle? Are we going to be living a life of standard deviation, so to speak? And anything outside of those parameters, those outliers, we're going to knock those suckers off because we don't need them anymore. So are we coming to a kind of, through your book, you take us along all of these adventures of the extremes, the outliers, what they're about. What can you learn from them? What can you let go? And how to be able to conform, do you think, perhaps?
Well, it might seem cruel. It might seem harsh. And I've heard that, like, wow, your world's pretty harsh. It's pretty black and white. It's not. You still have free choice in the age of resolve, but it's not untethered freedom anymore. Right now, I think what we're suffering from is this notion that we have free will no matter what. It's our God-given right to be free, to do what we want, to do what we want with our bodies, to do what we want to other people, to do what we want to the environment, to society. That's our God-given right. And I'm saying, you know what, maybe it shouldn't be. Maybe there should be consequences to your freedom. And you say, well, we have consequences. We have government institutions that govern people's actions. Well, how good's that working out for us, really?
Right.
Think about it. How much inroads have we made in crime and poverty and neglect over the years? Nothing's changing.
Yeah.
If anything, it's getting worse. So I'm saying maybe freedom with very real consequences, and that's where I created the existential virus. Imagine. I get to choose if I want to commit this crime, but I know that if I do, there are going to be very real personal consequences. Not a risk of being caught by a third party, by another human being, but real consequences to me, my person. Would my behavior change? Would society change? Would we become a kinder, gentler, more thoughtful society? I think we would, and I think we have to if we're going to survive.
I think the existential virus, in a way, is becoming awareness of that we are energy beings, so to speak. In other words, energy always has a consequence. You push something will come back. You'll feel the wave, you'll feel a deficit. Do you know what I mean? So if we look at it as simply as that, our voice, our thoughts, our body, our actions, what we do, what we don't do, all has that wave of energy. So is not the existential virus the energy wave of which we are all of? And it's showing how it can be manipulated, how it can be taken over this way to make better people, how it can interbreed within, changing DNA and RNA, how it can make people think something, even though they're not even part of that, just by maybe instituting a piece into their thought wave by changing their genome. I mean, these are really crazy things, and it's almost as if, when they used to say that someone was living in the woods for many years and they came out and they were acting like the animals they lived by. Can we affect and have an effect on society by interbreeding, by saying, I'm going to connect to nature, I'm going to connect to the animals, I'm going to connect to space, I'm going to connect to only humans. But now your book is about talking, what is that connection? How does it look? And how do you see the effects of it? Don't you think?
Absolutely. It's nature and nurture, right? We have to start cultivating society with consideration for that wave, right? That everything that we do bounces back in some way, shape, or form. And we don't do that. We throw it out there, and, there might be consequences, there might not be consequences. If you really had to think about, when I throw something out there, something's going to come back. Would you change your behavior?
Correct.
I think you would. I think you would. I think if there were very real feedback. Maybe it's a feedback loop. Maybe we need some kind of a closed loop system where it goes around, what goes around comes around type of mentality. Because right now we throw it out there and without thinking about what's the impact of my actions on not only me, my immediate surroundings, but my community, my family, my friends, my family's friends. We don't think that. I don't think that we think. I shouldn't say that in general terms, because there are some like amazing people on this planet. Don't get me wrong. There's amazing people, but there's a faction like this unspoken rule that you're allowed to do this. Mm-hmm. And the only thing that we've currently got as our feedback loop is what, like a people policing people. Mm-hmm. And how is that working out? I think part of the problem with this whole institutional, or the paradigm with this whole institution, is how do you rely on institutions to create a moral society when those institutions are steeped in immorality themselves? How? I just don't see a way out of this without some kind of fundamental shift in how we think about, being moral, what it means to be human, and what the role of being moral. Morality currently is relative. What I consider moral and what you consider moral are relative. What if it were universal? And that's the possibility that I've created with the Age of Resolve. Imagine if morality was our main currency and it was the guiding principle of everything we do. And if you choose not to follow those rules, which you have that right, then that wave that comes back at you, the consequences of that wave are very, very real with the existential virus. I mean, it's a make-believe world, but is it really that unreasonable to expect that we could live by a universal moral code? I don't know. Maybe I'm out to lunch. I'm not sure. But in my mind, if we had some kind of a mechanism to promote universal morality within all of our society as one global society, never mind this country, this rule, that rule, this church, that church, if we would just the 10 Commandments, it's very simple. The missive was so simple. How could we get it so wrong? How can we deviate so far off of a very simple set of rules that were given to us? I'm not sure how we've come down this path, but here we are, and who knows where it's going to take us.
I think also, too, Eileen, that if we look over the decades, you look back into the 30s and 40s, people were after post-war, in the Depression. They didn't have money. They didn't have education. I even reflected on it the other day. I said, holy smokes. I just realized that I think I'm the only one in that side of the family that's actually graduated high school. And I'm going, whoa, in the 70s, I was the first one. And I'm going, ooh, I didn't even realize that. And you're thinking, what are you talking, in the year 2023, people would say, what are you talking about? Everybody graduates high school. You know what I mean? And I think the idea is that humans in the past 100 years have been on warp speed. They've gone from having nothing to being an illiterate, their bodies breaking down, dying young, to these superhumans now, where we're altering, DNA and RNA to make better humans. And we're going, or this is the way it should be, and we're going to put out these parameters, and everybody, just as you say in your book, the illusion of the novel is, can we have people that are smarter, intelligent, more healthy, and be able to exist in the society in peace, love, and harmony kind of idea? So if you look at it, let's take that paradigm and say that's a lateral living. In the 1930s and 40s, they were killing each other. They were uneducated, couldn't put 1 and 1 plus 2, that kind of thing. But yet we're now, hey, our computers will do it. We're just avatars. We're just existing, and we're hunky-dory. So there's got to be a crash somewhere. Because what we've done is we have existed, in my generation and the one above me, we have existed in all of these paradigms, in all of these experiences. We've seen them, we've watched them, and now that we've finished out this level in which we are in, where is humanity going next? Are we going to jump straight up? Because there is no more left to right. In other words, we can't go back to being illiterate. We can't go back to fighting and killing people like in the wars. Do you know what I mean? In other words, the loop has now finished its circle. Don't you think that's what your story is all about?
Where do we go from here? Where are we going? That's a scary question. I like your use of the term avatar, because you're right. We've become avatars. We've become so complacent. We just, you go to work. This is how we exist, right? You get up, you go to work, you come home, you're exhausted. You got to do the laundry. You got to feed the kids. You got to feed the dogs. You got to mow the lawn. You got to do this. You might have an hour to yourself a night. You sit in front of Netflix and you just watch TV and you go to bed, rinse, repeat the next day, and we just keep going on and on and on. Like, what does it mean to be human now? There's no time to be.
It's funny, Eileen, what you just said. I just wanted to grab you there. Is because it's almost as if we're plugged in.
Right.
We plug in our cars now. We plug in our TVs. We plug in ourselves. We plug in the supplements and the powders we're supposed to be taking. And we plug in our beliefs, because this is what we need to be able to be validated and existing on social media. So in other words, our world is reflected back on us. Are we no longer engaging in the world to share who we are? We're just waiting to be able to say the outside world is what's all important.
Absolutely. That's exactly, I think, what's happening to our young people. They're not connecting with each other anymore. It's all about how many likes do I have on this app and these TikTok videos and post this and how many hits did I get, and I ask my kids, I said, what does that really mean to you? Like, how is that providing meaning in your life? Like, how is that enriching your life? How is that making you a better person? How is it making you want to contribute to society? I don't get it. Maybe because I'm older and I didn't grow up in the generation of TikToks and Facebooks, and I don't understand the appeal, but I watch it around me all day, and it's just like we're robots. It's rinse, cycle, repeat, wash, rinse, repeat over and over and over again, and I think, where are we going? Like, what?
Yeah.
I don't get it. I don't understand what my grandchildren and my grandchildren's grandchildren have to look forward to if we just keep, if the only aspiration we have is to become more digitally savvy, more technically savvy, to make things go better, faster, easier. How are we, what is society, how is personal connection going to look in 300 years from now?
You know, what I think is so vitally important to you share in your book, Eileen, is about the idea of drugs and about medications and about genetics and about animals and humans. I think that is so vitally important right there. You know, I think you wrote in your book, you said that, and learning the truth, I suppose you have to think for that. And I'm going, what is the truth? We truly are at a point, I think, where medicine is going to have what I've said 10 years ago. It's going to implode upon itself. The truth of what medicine is going to come out, how it's manufacturing, working, and doing things for drugs, therapies, treatments. What is a clinical trial? What is evidence-based medicine? What's that all about? What makes something given to you because it's, quote, approved by who or what? Yeah, okay. You know, I mean, I've been in medicine now for over 5 decades, and the good, the bad, the ugly that I could share, you know, I will write it in a book, and it will be published after I pass on. It's that dangerous. And I think it's also to the idea is that what is this all about? The answer is we're all doing the best we can. However, there are atrocities in the world that are playing out. The answer also, too, is, are we trying to build better and perfect bodies to withstand what's coming out ahead of us because we have the knowledge, so to speak, or are we building a superpower? If you look at it, just because we have access to something doesn't always mean we need to use it. Just because you have it or know it doesn't mean it has to be utilized all the time. So I think in your book, it took us on a great novel illusion adventure about what is the human about, what is the animal about, the interactions, and building that superpower. Yes?
Yeah. When did it become okay for us to think or to be so convinced that all we have to do is develop more and more and more medications and therapies and interventions with our own bodies, that is going to make us better human beings? Mm-hmm. I don't think that longevity of body, when my body is broken, I don't think that making myself last longer, go longer.
Right.
I just don't know what that is doing for me as a human being, how that's helping me when I do pass on. How am I going to say, I'm happy with where my life has gone, I'm happy with what I've achieved, I'm happy with what I've contributed, and I am, we don't accept it anymore. It's like, no, we just got to keep pushing, keep fighting it, when are we going to be happy? When we live 150 years? Is that what we're going for? I don't understand what is the end goal of all of this?
Right.
All of this technological advancement and gene therapies and manipulating our bodies, and who says that that's the way it has to go? Look, you're right. When the 30s and 40s, when you lived till you were 50 or 60 because of the environmental, the context, the environmental, the wars, the environmental context, the fact that it was all about survival then. We've come so far, but we're still not happy. We just keep pushing the envelope, and at what cost?
Right.
Maybe that's the question I'm asking. What is the cost of all of this? And is this really what we want for our grandchildren and our grandchildren's children? I don't know. That's not where I'm hoping. I want my kids to understand. My kid said to me, my daughter's always, I have 3 children. My oldest daughter said, you know what, Mom? I don't even know if I want to be a mom. I don't know if I even want to bring children into this world. And I thought, whoa, where did that come from? And then she started on about, and so she sees it, but she's so immersed in it that it was just like a moment of clarity for her. And then she said, well, I guess that's just the way it's going to be now. So wait a minute. At least, if the young people would stop and think about what is going to happen, my kid's going to be genetically manipulated, my grandkids, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's not a vision of the future that I see as having an outcome that's going to be satisfactory for all of humankind. I just don't see it happening.
I think do you think perhaps she was really saying to you, I am complacent now with the world in which it is because I know how to manipulate it and be able to work within it. So she's already resolved to the mantra, so to speak. Right?
Maybe.
Yeah, so she's already resolved to it. But in essence, I think also, too, I think it's important, Ilene, that we touch on this, is that it's almost as if we've now been given this new genetic medicine. It's almost as if we're given a toy and we're saying, I'm going to give you a lot of money. Use your brain and the Internet and explore it. So we take it to the nth degree. And we take it to the nth degree, and everybody's hanging over the edge, then everybody will either fall off the edge and the society will crumble, or we will just say we're going to be here in limbo and kill them off one at a time, so to speak. You know.
And if we get it wrong, we'll just sweep it under the rug, and we'll move on with the next great idea that we have. And how many times has that happened?
Yeah, you know, because I think it's so important, you know, even we look at these electric cars, you know. The other night there was a huge fire. I mean, you would have thought the whole block was burning down. And all it was the golf carts at the country club. And I'm going, everybody is like, oh my gosh, what is the deal with this? They had lithium batteries. They couldn't put the fire out. They had to let everything melt to the ground, and all the cars in the parking lot melt to the ground because they couldn't put the fire out because of lithium batteries.
That's a great example, because I think that's what's happening is we keep pushing faster, get it out faster, get it out. Well, what if there's no more risk assessment, there's no more what ifs, there's no more contingency plans, it's just get it to market as fast as you can. It's the next big thing. Everybody's going to jump on board, and you know, if something goes wrong, well, we'll deal with it when it comes. And how long can we do this before we, like you said, implode?
But what about the idea, Eileen, right there? We're doing it with our bodies because clinical trials are no longer what they used to be. They're being tested, and things have being amped up. It looks good in 6 months. Let's put it out.
That's right.
Or we're going to do it on healthy people. Who the heck is healthy anymore? There are no such things as healthy people. If you can find me 2 people that have never been touched by anything to do a clinical trial on, hey, honey, I want to meet them. You know, but the idea is then you turn it around and you've had this clinical trial on, quote, healthy people to know what the drug does, but you're giving it to sick people who have 4, 5, and 6 diagnoses to be able to fix something that you are postulating will be a potential way of getting them better. And you're going, you see it in the human how it works, but you've now taken that machine that has all these other things wrong. It's sort of like you have a car and you're going to say, we're going to put a computer in it now to be able to work its radio. But all of a sudden the gas tank doesn't work. The computer and the headlights don't turn on and off because they were manual. At the front door, you can't use a key to get in anymore, you know? And
I think that's what we're doing with our bodies.
It doesn't work. Yes.
You're solving one problem, and you're just solving one problem and creating another one. And on the thing of clinical trials, I'm a doctor too, right? So I understand this stuff too, this whole clinical trial thing. But try talking to a layman about this. Try to explain to somebody who, like, it's not fair. And I say, well, there's journal articles. Well, what's a journal article? And to have access to the science, well, then you need to have access to an academic database. Well, how do you get it? How does the general public get access to an academic database? Like, we're churning out all of these advancements at lightning speed, or just giving, you know, the general public a little sliver. All we're telling them is, yep, this works. Yep, clinical trials have proven. There's no context. There's no backdrop. Like you said, they're not explaining, well, who was this tested on and what was it? Was it a longitudinal study? Or has there been any systematic reviews? We don't do any of that. We just tell them what they want to hear so that they can have a pill and be happy.
But the idea is that if all people have, in other words, if we are really pushing the idea that humans are unique individuals with their own set of their own genetic makeup and their own genome, then why the heck are we pushing something that's supposed to go for the masses? In other words, are you fixing cars with headlights versus saying, I've got a different make and model and it's a different upgrade because it's customization? So in other words, you're really, it doesn't even make sense. What I'm saying doesn't even make sense. So you sit down and you put out a journal article because you saw it with your eyes. Well, you know, I'm looking at the sky today, and I live in New Orleans, and let me tell you, it looks a whitish gray, and it kind of looks really weird outside. I'm looking outside, and I'm saying, it almost looks like it's like maybe 30 degrees and going to snow. But, hey, the reality is I can open my door. It's 94% humidity outside today. It's 82 degrees, so the feels like temperature is in the 90s. So what is my reality? What is my illusion? What is my experience? And what are the filters that I'm putting all of my schmutz out there in the world?
And when you're in a position of power, you have the ability that people will believe you. No matter what you say, people will believe you. People will believe the pharmaceutical companies. They buy all of this because there's such a disparity in authority, in not only academic authority, financial authority. It's not an even playing field. So we just buy it lock, stock, and barrel.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens when the bottom falls out? Oh, oops.
Yeah.
And so we, like I said, we sweep it under the rug. We carry on. We make all these excuses. We do all these press releases, and then we can get into partisan politics and who controls what and who controls this narrative and what this media outlet says versus what that media outlet. And you're so confused at the end of the day that all you want to do is sit down on the couch and go to the next Netflix series and tune the world out.
Yeah.
And then get up the next day and do it again.
They were trying to convince us to do streaming, and I'm like, no, because you have to, I don't know, forget it. I like to click through, maybe watch 2 minutes of one show, 3 minutes of another, you know what I mean, like to go through the regular channels. But yet, they're saying, no, you need to go to streaming because you have such a large selection and blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, no, I want to live in the present moment. I don't want to live in whatever all that stuff is. So in essence, do you think your book, talking about the existential virus, is it not saying, what the heck is our mind doing? Where is it taking us? Who is feeding it?
Who's controlling it?
Right. Who is peeing on it? Who is trying to destroy it or misconstrue it or misconvey it? And is not the mind our biggest adversary, our biggest ally, but also, too, our biggest victim and our biggest murderer, perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. And why are we giving it up so freely? Just saying, yep, I'm gonna let my thoughts, I'm gonna let my reflections, my critical ideas, I'm just gonna put all it by the wayside, and I'm gonna listen to whatever I'm being told from these outside sources.
Mm-hmm.
And how can I can't reconcile. People call me, I don't know, introverted, I guess, because I can't take what somebody else tells me at face value. I have to come to the conclusion myself. I might agree, I might disagree, I might ask questions, maybe that makes me difficult, but maybe that's the scientific. You might have that same experience as a scientist yourself. That's the the scientist in us that asks those kind of questions, that doesn't take things at face value. But in general, our minds are cheap. We're just giving them up.
Yeah. And
so I'm saying, what if you took that back and you were in control of yourself and your actions, but know that as another person cannot control you anymore, another person is not the person that will apply the consequences. That comes from another worldly source. I don't exactly name who it is, but we all know who I'm talking about. And you were answerable to a higher moral authority.
Yeah.
Would we be a better world? In my opinion, we would, but not everybody agrees with me, and that's fine. They don't have to agree with me. It's just to get people thinking, asking questions, and forming their own thoughts and ideas, and as you say, controlling their own minds.
What I thought was so interesting, Ilene, in your book, you talk about taking blood a lot, and if you look back on the past few years, there was a lot of, let's take their blood, let's check these things out, these are parameters, let's be the look and see kind of people. And you know that in medicine, over the decades, take your blood, that's what you always do when you go to the doctor, so to speak.
Standard.
Yeah, and whenever's out of line, we're going to push it back in to be able to have you stay within the spot. You know, I am the doctor's worst person. I mean, my cholesterol has been the same exact number within 2 to 3 points since I've been 18 years old. But, it's high, so we have to do this and the other. I said, I just don't even listen anymore. You know what I mean? It's like, whatever. You know, I don't even go there. And I think also, too, the idea is that what happens when you start to ask questions about your therapies, your treatments, where you're going, what you're doing, how you're existing in the world, or are you just a receiver of all that the world has to spew out to you? You know,
there it is. There it is.
There was one thing. Right. There was one thing you had written in the book when they said about we need to see how it's affected or see how you're doing. You know, I can distinctly remember, and I won't. I'm going to change some of the parameters so that it's no conflict, but I had a patient and her father was working at this company and, you know, he would be donned in all his protective gear at work and, you know, he would come home and, you know, he would wondered why his daughter was sick. Well, whatever he was exposed to at work, he got in his car. She rode in his car, so whatever was exposing him at work was in the car, and it was therefore exposing the kid, and he brought it home with him. And he says, but we're fine. It's not a problem. They take our blood every 6 months at work.
Right,
and
robot.
They said, they watch us all the time to make sure we are healthy and everything is good. And I'm going, oh, my word. The day that they find out those numbers are starting to move, you will have a pink slip on your desk. You know what I mean? But to realize that, is this what you and I are talking about also, too, can freak people out. And what we're talking about is your novel, Age of Resolve. It's a novel, people. However, what about the idea of reality and illusion being the same thing?
Well, I think that the lines are so blurred now that people don't know because people can't think for themselves anymore because everything's being thrown at us so fast. We just take it for face value. To your point about the whole blood testing, my own father, he's in his mid-70s, and he has health issues, and he's on 7 or 8 different kinds of medication.
Right.
And I said, Dad, what are you taking this for? I don't know. Because the doctor told me. What are you taking that? I don't know. Yeah. I don't know. So I intervene and I say, I want to see his blood work. I want to know what you're giving him. I want to monitor this. He gets a blood test. 6 weeks later, he gets a phone call from the doctor, and I've told him within 24 hours, because now I can see his blood work. I'm, Dad, there's something going on here. Oh, well, it'll be fine when the doctor tells me. No, Dad, I'm telling you. But no, because I'm not that authority.
Yes.
That he just thinks that, no, the reality is I'm fine. You're just being overbearing, whatever you want to say. And no, surely, as I just said it, 6 weeks later, because they're busy and they've got 8 million other patients to look at, and their caseload is such and such that it took 6 weeks. But for those 6 weeks, that was his reality. No, I'm fine.
Yeah.
But no, you're not. But he don't believe me because I'm not that authority. And so people, there's no distinction anymore. There is no illusion. The illusion is reality. Perception is reality.
But
I am told this, therefore it must be true.
Eileen, who is an authority, and what is an authority all about? Because I know for myself, I went to the eye doctor, and I had told them, two parameters that I needed for them to follow. And one was not to give me the eye drops with a certain thing in it, and another was not to use a blood pressure cuff that was automated. I needed them to do it by hand because my arm hurts too much because the blood pressure was lower. But at any rate, as I had voiced the second one, the office manager came in, picked up my purse, and said, could you please come with me, and walked me out to the front door and shut the door. I was escorted out of the office because I asked a question, or I had asked something of the authority. Right. So the answer is are we asking people to stand up, be counted, pay attention, start doing things, and really make changes in society and speak their truth? Or are we saying, be careful who you talk to because you never know what happens?
Well, I think the book is challenging people to be individuals, to think for themselves, to do these things, to ask questions, to look after themselves, to be responsible for themselves instead of just so easily dishing out the responsibility for their own personal wellness to some other guy in an office because he says that that's the way it's got to be.
Right.
I don't do that either. I'm the worst patient on the planet too because I ask questions. I say, well, wait a minute. Or if one of my children gets hurt, or my father. Now I'm looking after my father, and I ask these questions. And you're right, they don't like that. But who gives them the right to control our bodies? Where you take an oath to do no harm, you don't take an oath to be the overseer of my person. You're here to help me and support me. And there is a movement. I know I don't want to paint everybody with the same brush. There is a movement in medicine towards, patient-centered care and recovery-centered care, and there is a movement, but it's a great political idea. But
it's
I think currently it is. I just actually publishing a paper on that right now, an academic paper on that very topic, because it's a great idea politically, and it's got a lot of, it sounds great, and it's got a lot of, it's very empowering to the patient and everything, but in reality, paternalism still rules how we deliver medicine, and how that's going to change and when that, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but I think it's starting, but we're long ways off.
The idea, Eileen, is that you and I grew up in the decades of, hey, if they don't like their medicine, let's put it in a pink bottle, pink syrup, so it can taste like bubble gum. Or, or if your kids don't eat vegetables, we'll just put it in a powder or put it in meatballs and they'll never notice it. Stick it in one of those blender things, and they'll never know that it's actually in there. So are we not teaching people how to never be in truth, because we don't even know what truth is? We don't know what reality is. Are we not all living a life facade?
We are. Maybe if you took the time to explain to the child why it's important to eat their vegetables, and let them choose, let them reflect, let them think, and remind them, if you don't do this, then these are the consequences to your person. You choose. No, we don't do that. We take that choice away from them, and we force it by some covert method of getting them to do what we want them to do.
Yeah. And
that's the way, that's parenting today. That's how we raise our children, and that's how our children are going to be raising our children. It's just, to me, if we just took 5 minutes to let people be responsible for themselves and accept the consequences of the choices they make, instead of shoving everything at them and having all of these great multi-million-dollar media campaigns and public awareness campaigns and all this pressure. No, you have to do this because so-and-so says so.
Right.
Then I think we'd all be better people. But hey, what do I know? What do I know?
Hey, Eileen, how about the idea? I'll tell you, I've been in, like I said, doing this for so long too, and we saw it. Supplements and vitamins now are coming out in gummies, and medicine is coming out in gummies, and I'm going, oh my gosh, are you the decade that developed that and first started that? Is the decade below me, where they had gummy worms when they first came out, in the 1980s, and they were eating them as kids. And I'm going, why the heck are you doing that? And I'm going, and they're like, well, if you don't like the taste, just take a gummy. And I'm going, I'm not 10 years old. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it's going, oh, Lord, please wake me up from this world. Do you think your book, Age of Resolve, is truly about saying, let's adventure through this illusionary concept of the existential mind, so to speak, see how the virus perhaps can expand and take us on a journey, and how society and the culture around us is in response.
Yeah. Let's do it. Let's ask, let's at least consider the possibility, like we said at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Because if we don't start thinking about alternate paths forward, I don't see, it's just going to keep, we're just going to keep churning out all of these advancements, and people are just going to become more robotic and become more distant with their own thoughts and ideas, and just like you say the age of resolve is about compliance, but to me, right now we're living in a world of compliance, because if you don't comply, if you don't toe the line, you're going to get
out
ousted.
Of the eye doctor.
Oh, you're going to get ousted pretty darn quickly, right?
Yep.
And that is really sad that that's where we've come. That's how far we've come. And I'm saying, take control. I like the way you put it, your mind. Take control of your own mind. Think for yourself. Be responsible for yourself. But accept the consequences that come with it.
The difference is, though, when you get walked out of the eye doctor, that goes on your record. I mean, let me tell you. Oh, yes.
How, as what? As what? A difficult patient?
There's not another doctor in this city that will take you. And you're going,
why?
What the heck? Well, because the good old boys. Let's close it out with that, Eileen. What about the good old boys?
Good old boys.
There's good old boys that are called the protection squad. That's what I call them. They're the ones that say, oh, the world is great. Just have this meatball. Just turn around. Just try this out. And they've got it laced, those dang CBD gummies all the time. You know what I mean? Let's just sit down and smoke this and have a little piece of candy or a brownie. Life is hunky-dory.
No, we'll even legalize it for you. We know it's, it's psychoactive, but we'll make it legal so you can not ask questions.
I know.
Not think for yourself. Just sit down and watch Netflix and smoke a doobie. Yeah, I know. That's the way it's going. I know.
This crazy supplement industry right now too. We need to get some sleep, and we need to calm you down and bring you back into balance. I'm going, balance, hell. That little needle is sticking up my butt, and I had enough of it. There's no balance in my life. I'm left to right, and I'm up and down, and I'm good to go. Isn't that perhaps what people say is chaos? But are we say, what is our life about? What is it about? Well lived, right?
Wait, what are we doing here? Like, what is our purpose? I use the word purpose throughout the book. What? Really ask yourself, what is my purpose? And am I in control? And do I get to make my own choices? They're saying we have all of this free will. Really, do we? I'm not so sure. Like you said, old boys club, right? I just think
free will is the freebies that you get when you go to the fair that's in a can.
To me, that's not enough for me. So that's why I chose to write this book. Yeah.
You and I are not kumbayas. I got it. I think the idea is that we're all doing the best we can, but boy, oh boy, are we seeing it for what it's worth. Eileen, I think it was such a wonderful journey to go with you today as we excavated all the generations, all of the illusions, and perhaps some of the truths that we were saying, maybe not. So we thank you so much for going on this wonderful journey with us.
And I thank you very much for your time and for your deep insight and thought. It's really nice to have a conversation with somebody who really scratches beyond the surface and really digs down into, this whole idea of existentialism and what does it mean to be human. I really appreciate that. I really enjoyed this.
We thank you so much. Can you share with the listeners, Eileen, how to find out more information about your work?
Well, I have the website, IleneGrydsuk.com. The second book is being published now, so the sequel, it's called The Age of Ascent. That's coming out now, and I'm currently writing the third and final piece of the series. Gets pretty dicey for Everett, our main character, but so I do have the website. I'm really terrible with social media, and I think based on this interview, you know why. They don't really buy into all of it, so I'm not very good at it. But yeah, so I guess my website, the book is available on Amazon, and I'm going to make an effort to be more present in social media for beneficial purposes only, and. So, just have some patience with me. I'm just an old gal trying to carve my way through this new world that we live in. I'm just a farm girl who likes to play around with my animals, as you can probably gather from the book. So hopefully that's enough.
Well, it was such a pleasure to have you, Ilene, and I hope that you do come back and join us with your other works, because we would love to be able to dance in the ethers with that story too.
All right, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. If you'd like to find out more information about Ilene Grydsuk, again, the book is Age of Resolve, the EV Chronicles. Remember, this is book 1. She has book 2 and 3 coming out also. This is fantastic summer 2023 read, and you never know what she'll be able to come up with next, because it is about being able to say, what is reality, truth, illusion, what is the life we are living, and what are they, putting, I always say, what are they writing on the toilet paper, putting it on the roll in the bathroom, or we just have to suck it in and just be able to take it? Well, no more. We're all about speaking up, speaking out, and to you that get walked out of the eye doctor's office, kudos. You're my kind of people. Thank you so much for joining us today. This is Dr. Jeanette-Gallagher. Until tomorrow, have a great day.
Today we discussed many life-changing concepts. Who do you turn to, and how do you know what is best when faced with a health crisis? Dr. Jeanette is a patient advocate. She listens to the patient, the doctors, and the family, clarifies the health issues and concerns, then helps the patient make the best choices going forward. If you would like help implementing change into your life and health, we can talk and see where you are stuck and how to improve the quality of your life. Check the link on the bottom of today's show page, or visit dr.jeanette-gallagher.com to schedule a phone appointment today.